Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. As you can tell by the clarity of my voice, I have purchased a new microphone for the podcast, stepping it up in the podcast game with a Yeti Blue. Very excited by that. So there'll be more clarity for these wonderful conversations that I have with healers from across the globe. And today's episode is one of the pandemic self-care Facebook Live conversations I've had early on when the pandemic first hit back in March and April. 36 amazing, beautiful podcast guests who had previously been on the show had joined me for these pandemic self-care live conversations. So I am sharing them now in the audio version. All right. Until next time, remember, be gentle with yourself. Hi, everybody. So welcome again back to the Healing Place podcast Facebook Live conversations on pandemic self-care, but not just self-care, but other care as well. We've had some conversations where we've talked about how to be cognizant that all of us are on a healing journey together right now, really, as we go through this. And today I'm really excited to have with me Kelly McDaniel, who's been on the podcast in the past. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Teri. It's good to see you and be able to connect during this.
Yes, for sure. I feel so grateful for the wonderful response I've received from my podcast guests. So yes, thank you so much for being willing to come on. And we talked a little bit before I hit go live. And we're going to talk about gender differences in response to, and I just told you I saw a funny video and we have to keep our humor during this, or at least I do. And it was just it was a flashlight lady holding a flashlight hiding in her closet and talking about, my husband asked me this morning where we keep the spoons. And she was talking, we've been married 31 years. What did he mean? Where do we keep the spoons? And so I'm hiding in the closet because he'll never think to look for his wife in the closet if he can't find the spoons. So, and it was just, it totally cracked me up. And so, yeah.
Yes, I think it's really, the folks out there with a good sense of humor right now are offering us such a great relief, because the tension is thick. And I think that one of the ways that we can soothe ourselves when we're frightened, it goes back to why I named Mother Hunger. When we have a name for something that bothers us, our nervous system calms down. So I have found that it's really helping the couples that I work with to understand why their fear response is different. As soon as they understand why their fear response is different and their conflicts are getting more intense, it seems to calm things down a bit. It depersonalizes what's going on.
Yeah.
So even though the research I'm going to be referring to is based on gender, what we're really seeing is that the differences are not always gender related. So what I want to talk about is, I think that because we are collectively facing a threat that's somewhat invisible, right? We have a monster coming our way that we can't see. So we're living with anticipatory fear and trauma, as well as some of us that are witnessing on the front lines the horrible things that are happening right now. So everybody's afraid.
Right.
And when we're afraid, I think it's pretty well known that we go into fight or flight or freeze.
Right.
But what is less well known is that the studies that tell us that we fight or want to run were done on men. Those studies were done on male physiology. Now, as early as 1950, there was some research showing that there are some gender differences in how we respond to fear. There was a research project done where men and women were put into a room and told that within just a few minutes they would receive an electric shock. And what happened was the men, while they waited, dispersed, went into their own space. The women tried to get near one another or near to the men. They wanted to be together. Fast forward another 50 years, and in the year 2000, Shelley Taylor is doing groundbreaking work in Oregon, looking at stress response differences and finding that women, while women can fight or run or freeze when frightened, They also have another skill set, which is hormonally driven, to tend and befriend. She named it the tendon befriend theory because what she found is that when women were stressed, they started tending. Um, this could be hardwired into us because we need to take care of infants. They also befriend, which means want to be with others. It wouldn't have served a woman in a hunter and gathering kind of society to be isolated under threat. She needed to be with the community to protect her children and herself. So this makes a whole lot more sense when we think about how in our relationships, um, the fear might be impacting us very differently. So let me give you an example.
Yeah, you've captivated me. I'm wow.
Okay.
I
Okay.
haven't heard this.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad this is new information because I
Yeah.
think that this can really help normalize why in our partnerships we're responding very differently and then we're arguing more or we're fighting more. Um, so I will use typical gendered kind of heteronormative examples right here, but I'm finding these dynamics are not exclusive to males and females in partnership. That this happens, and I think I don't have the research for this, but I think this is really also based on our attachment style. So if we're more avoidant in our attachment style, we may behave more like fight and flight.
Yeah.
If we're anxiously attached, we may tend to befriend, but I can't prove that yet. I'm working on that. So I'm just going to go with the science, and the science has given us the biological differences. So typically in quarantine, we have a man who is stuck in his home with let's say, a female partner, maybe children too. And his tendency in fear is to fight or flee, or he can't run. Oh, and he doesn't really want to fight the people he loves. So what we're finding is that the characteristics of being a little dismissive, um, minimizing his partner's fear, withdrawing, are intensifying. Those are the only ways he can fight and flee, by just dissociating and acting like no one's really there, that he's in this alone. Um, that unfortunately can intensify a woman's fear because she wants to befriend. She wants to get close to him. He's trying to flee. These two things don't go well together biologically. Um, she may also be tending, right? So to soothe her nervous system, she wants to care for the people around her or keep the house clean. These are great skill sets in quarantine from a virus. I mean, we need cleanliness. We need,
Right.
but for those of us that are already maybe compulsive about this, it's intensified and can be really irritating to the people around us, and yet it's hardwired in. So both these responses, to be dismissive, to withdraw, or to want more proximity, to be cleaning more, cooking more, checking on everybody more, this is hardwired in, and it's happening biologically before cognition. So it's happening in the body before it goes to the brain to say, oh, maybe that's not a good idea right now. Maybe these people need me to just calm down.
Right.
So the more I can kind of normalize this for the folks I'm working with, it helps them realize the threat is not your partner. The threat's coming from outside. But because we respond to it differently, it sometimes makes us really at odds with each other when we most need each other. Yeah. When you really need to understand we have different ways of responding to this stress. Both are really good. Fighting a threat is a really good quality. You know, women needed men to be protective, but it's really hard to fight a threat that we've never seen before. So the male skill set of fighting, where does that go right now?
Right.
Unfortunately, it picks fights, or it looks like it has to just go away.
Yeah. And like you said, I think shining the light on this, I would think that would, yes, help dissipate it, because you can take a step back and go, oh, okay, now I understand why she's feeling the need to clean so much, or why he's wanting to go into his space and not talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
It normalizes it, and it helps us understand that we are mammals to the core right now. And when we're in fear, we're going to go to our body-based reactions that are meant for our survival. but they don't work really well in quarantine unless we decide to help them work in quarantine.
Right.
When
And so that's where all of these self-care strategies and these coping skills and these grounding strategies come into play, because if we can keep ourselves in a place of calm and normality, I guess, then we aren't responding in that fight, flight, freeze response.
Yes, and I think sometimes it's unrealistic to think we won't respond in them. So what I have found that's even another helpful tool is to help people reframe these behaviors in a positive way. Rather than see them as damaging right now, let's look at how they're working for us. Let's appreciate the fact that our partner is cleaning. Let's appreciate the fact that our partner is worried about, do we have enough food in the pantry? Let's look at that as an asset rather than a problem or an irritant. Let's really appreciate our partner's hardwiring during stress. Let's appreciate that our partner might need to withdraw. That's how our partner's conserving energy in case we need it, and we might. So if we can see each other as responding in a way that is the only way we have right now, and appreciate it rather than find it annoying, that can really help a couple.
Yeah, I love that. And and to look at it, right, as a positive.
Yes.
Yeah.
To frame that for children, like couples that have children living with them are under such incredible pressure right now.
Yeah.
So if a couple can kind of monitor's the wrong word, can kind of model how they appreciate each other, even when we're not acting our best for the kids, it helps calm the kids down.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I had that conversation this morning. I said, we have a 13-year-old who's always been independently studious, and she's 2 weeks ahead on her packet. And we really just don't have to do much. I went into her room last night and said, do you need help with anything? Do you have like a project to do that you might need help with? And she's like, no, I'm good. I got it all. And so I thought, wow, this is so easy. I feel so blessed, because what a blessing. But I know, seeing posts from friends and family out there that some really are struggling because they're trying to work from home. And especially if they have toddlers or little ones. And that's a tough situation to balance.
It's a really tough situation to balance, because for mothers, particularly with children around of almost any age, the tending and befriending instinct is going to magnify 10 more times, because not only does she want to tend and befriend with her partner, but she's in protective mother bear mode with her children.
Right.
While that's coming from a good place, kids might experience it as, we're really in danger because mom is really amped up.
Right.
That's normal for mom. So mothers have to work overtime right now to try to calm the female nervous system, to try to remind ourselves to breathe. We're going to automatically hold our breath. We're going to automatically puff up and become a mama bear. That's normal, but it can scare the people around us when the people around us are already scared. So it's a real double bind where our biology has us acting one way, and yet the people around us need us to stay calm.
Right. Yeah, very great point. And that it just hadn't come up yet, is that, kids certainly pick up on our behaviors, but also on our energy and what we're putting out. And if we do have this fear resonating, they're picking up on that. So, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And right now it's collective. We're feeling that fear that's around us in the air.
Yeah, for sure.
We're all swimming in it.
Right. So any suggestions on self-care or what people can do?
Well, I do think it's helpful for a couple to have this discussion about, here's what I do when I'm afraid. If you don't know what you do when you're afraid, it might be interesting for you to do a little reading. Read about Tendon Befriend. Google it. Read about fight and flight. Google it. It's a great use of your technology right now. And then look at what characteristics you're demonstrating. Talk with your partner about it. Maybe talk with your kids about it. Think about which of these strategies are useful and which are not. One of the strategies I'm finding, because I work primarily with women, and so I'm helping them with their Tendon Befriend. Your tending instinct is really good right now. Think about what kind of items you'd like to have in your pantry. Many people have already done this. And ask your kids what they want in the pantry. Ask your partner, what would you like in the pantry? That's a good use of tending. For befriending, maybe you're with a household of people that are more in withdrawal mode. And so nobody wants to hang out with you. Hopefully, you've got some pets. Stay near
Right.
your pets. That's really helpful. Call your girlfriends, FaceTime your girlfriends. That befriending instinct needs your focus. It deserves it, but it may not be that the people in your immediate circle want to be close to you right now. That's okay. Get close to the people that you can call.
Yeah. Yeah. We did a Zoom call with all my high school girlfriends. It was just so great to see their faces.
And
Yeah.
I think for women, that is just so critical right now. It's
Yeah.
so critical right now, especially for those of us that are living in partnerships where the befriending instinct is not shared.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that connection, and that's a theme that just keeps coming up over and over in these conversations is connection, and just how important it is to maintain some level of connection with.
It really is. It's very important. And I think women are hardwired for it. And and I think some men are too. We have some men that are really tending and befriending really well during this.
Yeah,
And we have lots of women who are not tending or befriending very well. They are in full on fight and flight. So again, I don't know that it's specific to gender, but the fight and flight can get in our way of getting the connection we need.
right.
So that's where it's helpful that you're having um, there are so many ideas right now for us to do our yoga, to do our deep breathing, to listen to meditations, to listen to podcasts to help us calm the fear. But the fear
Yeah,
is real. There's only so much we're going to be able to do. So having compassion for ourselves when we do get activated is critical.
right, for sure. I mean, I know just because of my own trauma history and recovery and healing journey that I'm a freezer. It's what I do. It's how I respond. And so, but just knowing that I've caught myself and being like, oh, I'm in freeze response. And again, just acknowledging it. I think that's just such amazing advice, because if you can take a step back from yourself and how am I responding to this?
Exactly.
It really does help. So, okay. So anything else that you want to touch upon before we close out?
Oh, I just love that you brought up the freeze response because I think for a lot of us right now, here's what the freeze response looks like. We have a hard time getting off the couch or out of bed.
Yeah.
Very normal. And this is where finding something good to watch on Netflix with the people you care about while you're frozen on the couch is a great idea. Or listening or watching a podcast together is a great idea. It helps with the fact that you are kind of frozen. It's hard to get off the couch. So listen to something together or by yourself.
Yeah. Great response. Yes, absolutely. I love it. All right. So how do people get a hold of you?
Well, if anyone does need some support right now, probably the best way to find me is my website, kellymcdanieltherapy.com.
Awesome.
Yeah. But like everybody, it's a video check-in right now and um, busy time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for the work you're doing and helping others along that journey, and the beautiful light that you shine into the world,
And
guiding others.
you too,
Yeah.
Teri. This is a great service that you're providing. This podcast that you're offering right now. It's a great healing mechanism. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank
Thank you for
you.
having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you responded to join me, and yeah, I feel blessed. Everyone, if you'd like to listen in, remember there's more lives that I've done over the past. Oh my gosh, it's been the past 6 days or so, which is and the response has been incredible. Over 12,000 people have listened in, which I love. So let's keep that going. Feel free to share these, comment. The more we engage with them, the more they'll be seen. And we can get this message out to people who are struggling and looking for a hand to hold through this and guidance. So yeah, and listen to the Healing Place podcast on iTunes and Spotify, Pandora, which is really cool. I just found out in the last few weeks it's on Pandora Radio, and Deezer. But just Google the Healing Place podcast and you'll find us. YouTube. And I'll put this conversation out on my YouTube channel as well, which is wonderful. So another great resource. All right. Well, everyone, thank you. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. All right. Bye-bye.